Trump, the village idiot Donald Trump, keeps screwing up the reasons for the Iraq War, the Iran War. I'm sorry. Every time his sycophants try to fix it, he messes it up. We're going to go over that today. We're going to look at some reporting about Congressman Tony Gonzalez, um, Republican congressman from Texas, who is something. That's all I could say. We're going to look at some reporting from Iran, from the war in Iran that has to do with the Kurds today. And I don't remember what else we're doing, to be perfectly honest with you. But let me before I get to everything that we're going to be looking at, let me just kind of start bringing folks in so I can kind of see. Before I get to everything. Hey, Gamer Vet Dad, how's it going? Hang on. So I've got the live stream working now for whatchamacallit, for Substack. I'm just checking to see if I can see our live streams, which never really works. Yeah, I can't really see them. See our live streams in on Instagram. I'm still working on that to be able to see those live streams on Instagram and Facebook. Still not working yet. I'm going to bring TikTok in. I figured out a new TikTok solution. We'll see how long it lasts. So give me just a second. We're going to go live on TikTok. Hang on, and then we're going to get to everything. I figured out a way to, I didn't figure anything out. I did some research. A way to stream this live that you guys are seeing into TikTok through something called a virtual camera. Oh, hang on. Okay, so we are live now on TikTok as well. Um, we'll see how long it lasts. Things get weird on TikTok, as we all know. All right, guys. So I hope everybody's doing well. Hey, Gail, how are you? Sorry, guys. Hey, Z, how's it going? I hope you guys are doing well. Jamie, how are you? Trad Aunt, how are you guys doing? So hopefully things will work out on TikTok today. So we are streaming live, multi-streaming, Instagram, Substack, Facebook, and TikTok and YouTube. It's all working. It's working fantastic. Mitch is it. It's fantastic. I love that guy, Mitch. He does a fantastic job. So we are, streaming across the board everywhere, almost everywhere. Twitch is next, my friends. I apologize in advance to the Instagram and Facebook folks. I still can't see the live there yet, but I'm going to get that. I'm going to get that straightened out. I'm working on it. We're getting there. Let's get right into it today. So, guys, first thing I think we need to cover is the fiasco that is the Iran war, or at least the U.S. participation in it. The village idiot Donald Trump cannot, no matter how hard he tries, right? He cannot get it together, right? He can't find a way to keep the story straight for why it is that we are in this war. I'm sorry, guys. I also got new earbuds so that I don't get echoes in my lives and falling out of my ears. So got to figure out what to do about that. So the village idiot can't seem to get it right. So the reasons that Donald Trump has given us for going to war started out with a nuclear weapon. That the Iranians were months, weeks, whatever away from having a nuclear weapon. Now you got to remember, this is after the village idiot in the White House declared back in the summer that they had completely destroyed Iran's nuclear capabilities, right? It was game over after Operation, what was it over the summer? Operation Iron Hammer or whatever the hell's stupid fucking name they came up with, right? But it was Operation some shit, right? Over the summer, right? When we, went and we bombed the nuclear facilities. And then immediately after that bombing, right, if you remember, guys, and it wasn't that long ago, but immediately after that bombing, the Village Idiot announced on True Social and subsequently announced, in press conferences and whatnot, they completely obliterated, destroyed. They're never gonna have a nuclear weapon. We completely obliterated. Anything that's saying it wasn't destroyed is fake news. It's all fake news. Remember that? Um, so you know, now not only did they insist upon that being the case, right? Not only was the Village Idiots insistent that the nuclear capabilities of the Iranians had been completely decimated back in the summer, right? Not only was that the case that he insisted on that, but the White House actually put out. I should have had it ready for this live. I'm sorry, but the White House actually put out a post on X from the official White House .gov account that I basically said, I'm paraphrasing it, that Iran's nuclear nuclear capabilities were completely destroyed and obliterated. Drunken Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, not war, because that's not a thing. There is no Secretary of War, by the way, if anybody was wondering. The Secretary, the Department of Defense can only be changed by an act of Congress, not by the village idiot Donald Trump announcing it, and not by Pete Hegseth saying it and putting a plaque up in front of his office saying that he's the Secretary of War. Right? Doesn't work that way. But the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, back then was also, you know, insistent that yes, this was the Iranian capabilities had been completely obliterated, gone, right? Dunzo Americano, right? No bueno for the Iranian military nuclear efforts. Well, we all knew that was bullshit, right? Because there was plenty of reporting to suggest it was bullshit. But here we are, so many months later, and the village idiot clearly under the pressure and because the village idiot likes to be liked by the people he likes to be liked by, and he really wants to be liked by Benjamin Netanyahu. Operation Midnight Hammer. Thank you, Gamer Vet Dad, for clearing up. That's what that was. It was Operation Midnight Hammer. It must have been Petey Keg's breath naming it because those were the shots he was taking in the frat house. Pretty funny. But irrespective, the village idiot comes out after the pressure from. There's been plenty of reporting that Steve Witkoff, who was the real estate lawyer, and Jared Kushner, who was the son-in-law, right? These are the guys that were negotiating peace with Iran, supposedly. That just a day after they announced that they were really close to success, really, really close to success, that was the following day or following 2 days later, we go and bomb Iran with Israel. So it was then subsequently there was ample reporting that most likely Benjamin Netanyahu put pressure on the village idiot Donald Trump to bomb Iran. Trump probably wants to be liked by Netanyahu right now for some reason. He needs to be liked by whoever it is that he needs to be liked by whenever he needs to be liked by them. So, that was the deal. So the war starts and they need an excuse for it. They need a reason for it other than Donald just decided to do it, right? Other than just, he wanted to do it, right? Thought it was something he wanted, right? So the excuse is, of course, that, there was a nuclear weapon. They were going to have a nuclear weapon any minute, any hour, any day, couple of months, days, years, who knows? You got different stories from different people. But of course, the fact that contradicted what they told us over the summer is irrelevant because they do think that we're all ignorant and stupid, and maybe they're right. Maybe we are to a certain extent, but I don't think we're that deft, right? So they make the argument. So they ignore the fact that it's just like it never happened. The fact that they had told us over the summer that the nuclear capabilities of Iran were completely eradicated, and they go with that, right? And that was sort of the prevailing argument, as clearly to the extent that they did planning, the Pentagon was planning for as the Pentagon was planning for this. Um, that was clearly the during the right before the State of the Union. That was clearly the narrative. But then the State of the Union happened, right? And Trump is babbling incessantly about this and that and every other bit of nonsense during the State of the Union, and he tosses in there a little bit of a narrative shift, right, during the State of the Union, right? Something we hadn't heard before, and that is we're not gonna let them get an intercontinental ballistic missile that they're gonna be able to use to hit us. No, we're very strong. We're gonna stop it now. Now again, no one, at least here, I don't know in Israel. I can't speak to what the Israeli media was reporting because I wasn't paying attention to it at that time, right? But at least here in the US, I'm pretty dialed in to what's going on. And unless I'm missing something, and feel free to correct me on any platform if I'm wrong, but from my recollection, that was the first I'd heard about Iran potentially having an intercontinental ballistic missile, right? That could hit the US. And again, it was sort of like, weeks and days or whatever, right? It's going to come whenever it's going to come, but we got to stop them from having that. So already, even before the bombing, right, the narrative started out nuclear weapons. And if that sounds familiar, let's use a different terminology that those of us that are old enough to remember the two Iraq wars, or at least the second one for sure, weapons of mass destruction, WMDs. Y'all remember that? George Bush, Dick Cheney back in the day, announcing weapons of mass destruction. And that Saddam Hussein had them, right? I remember that. I remember when the second Iraq war started, I was by myself at my apartment. I was living in New York in a small apartment in Alphabet City. I was in my last year of college. I was at age to go into the military. My friends had all gone home for the Christmas holiday. I decided to stay at school, and I was by myself in my apartment watching the war start, watching the shock and awe campaign. You remember that, guys? It was called the shock and awe campaign. Watching the bombs falling on Iraq to get rid of the weapons of mass destruction that were never there. Well, for those of us of a certain age, that scenario was obviously repeating itself, right? So far, as of State of the Union, right, we had two different, I guess, marginally related reasons for having the war, right? It was nuclear weapons that Iran was going to have soon, within a couple of months. That contradicted what we heard over the summer after Operation, what is it, Gamer Vet Dad, Midnight Hammer supposedly destroyed all the nuclear facilities into obliteration, and everything else was fake news, right? Then we had the State of the Union, and now we have this intercontinental ballistic missiles that can somehow make it here to the United States and blow us all up. But just a little touch of it, not really a whole story, just a little tinge, right? Just enough to kind of, wet our whistle. Then the bombing happens, and we go and we bomb the Iranians the first time. And in the beginning, they're still going with the nuclear weapons reason, right? And because it's such the Trump administration is such a chaotic public relations clusterfuck of epic proportions, right? It's such a consistent mess of reactivity. They're always reactive. They're incapable of being proactive, right? Because they don't Donald Trump is incapable of being proactive. So in the beginning, the bombs fall day one, and they think that Americans are behind this, that a war-weary country is behind this. A country that, what was that where you had roughly a quarter or less than a quarter of the nation supporting the Village Idiots, uh, uh, bombing and of boats, on Venezuela, and the incursion or invasion into Venezuela, where we snatched Maduro and his wife, right? But left the murderous regime in power. Right? We really did nothing in Venezuela except maybe get some shit oil that we can't really use, right? That nobody fucking wants, right? And create a personal bank account for the village idiot to temporarily have in Qatar to put the money from the Venezuelan oil sales that nobody wants, right? But that's basic, and it's over. That's basically the whole thing, right? And none of America liked that. I mean, some of the MAGA folks liked it, but for the most part, even the MAGA folks didn't really like that very much, right? They weren't really that into it because the village idiot promised during the campaign incessantly, no new wars. We're not going to have any wars. I'm going to be the peace president. And then we saw him desperately, desperately campaigning after he was elected to get the Nobel Peace Prize because Obama had it. And he hates Obama, right? He wants it, right? Yeah, he desperately wanted that note. I think they should give me the prize. And there's going to be problems in Norway if I don't get the prize. To the point where the person who won the Nobel Peace Prize, right? I can't think of her first name. Machado, isn't that her last name? The incredibly brave activist in Venezuela who won the Nobel Peace Prize and thought, and we feel bad for her actually because she's a true hero, just making a terrible political move. She thought that she was going to be able to get democracy and freedom and peace in Venezuela and actually be the leader, or somebody of her from her community would be the leader if she just kissed the village idiot's ass and offered to give him her fucking prize, which she did. Took it, right? What the fuck? That didn't work out. But the idiot, he wants the Nobel Peace Prize and bombs Venezuela. It's very unpopular. Or destroys boats off of Venezuela, fishing boats, and maybe narco boats as well. And then he follows up and he bombs Iran for the reason. I'm going to get back to the main narrative that I'm on here. So I guess my point was when they started bombing Iran, they're so fucking clueless. They're so unaware. They live in Donald Trump's delusional mind, so to the point that they believe that Venezuela was a political success for them, right? I really think they believe this. They believe that Venezuela was a political success for them, and they believe that the MAGA community is so thick that they're just like, yay, we voted for no war, but we fucking love Venezuela. Maybe go into Cuba next, and yeah, bomb Iran. And some of them are, but not most of them. So they go with this same fucking narrative. Hey, Lacey, how are you? Thank you, Lacey. They go with this same narrative, right? In the beginning of the bombing of Iran, and that narrative is the nuclear weapon, right? Iran's going to have a nuclear weapon. And that sticks for about 3 hours, right? And I know babbling, bumbling loudmouths like Mitch, right? Like me, immediately come on and we're like, go on our lives and we post on our socials and we're immediately like, what the actual fuck are they doing? And if there's no nuclear fucking threat, and stop it, right? People with much larger platforms get through to a lot more people than I do, but we did it, right? We got on there, and lo and behold, what happens is it's not just us. It's not just the progressive media and the pro-democracy media and most of fucking legacy media, with the exception of like Fox News and the propaganda outlets. It's the MAGA community are like, what the fuck are you doing? It's horrible people like Nick Fuentes, right? Horrible, horrible individual. And by every metric of human decency, right? But still, a lot of the folks who support MAGA liked him. And he's like Nick Fuentes goes on to his massive social media platform within hours, right? I mean, it's not funny, but it's funny because it's so crazy, right? Nick Fuentes goes on. He's like, fuck it, vote for Democrats, right? Now, look, I don't want his vote. If I was running for Congress, obviously, I would tell. Of course, my life was restricted on on hang on the live was restricted. Why is my live restricted on TikTok? Your live is not eligible for recommendation and restricted in the search results for the next 10 minutes because your live does not comply with the For You feed eligibility standards and community guidelines for harassment and bullying. TikTok, don't do this. I'm not bullying anyone. I'm talking about Donald Trump, and he's not here. And I'm talking about, guys, is it me? TikTok? Is it me, guys? You guys are there. Is this bullying? I don't know. I don't know. Substack, do you feel bullied? Instagram, YouTube, I don't know if there's anybody out there, but do you feel bullied? TikTok, stop it. All right, we're going to try to do this. We're going to try to do this in a way that isn't offensive to the TikTok algorithm. Because, and by the way, this is a great moment, by the way. Thank you, Lacey. Thank you for your support. This is a moment. Let's just stop. Let's just stop the madness for a second because it's a great moment to pitch my community on Substack, Zenocracy, or our other socials. If you are on TikTok and you don't want to deal with this in terms of my lives, please come over to Zenocracy.news on Substack. I know it can be a stretch because it's a totally different platform. It works differently, and we are rightfully comfortable in the places where we like to get our content. And I totally and completely get that. But it's really challenging to really deliver my lives and my messages effectively, although I won't stop trying on TikTok. And I will try to consistently, now that I figured out a way to stream to TikTok, I'm bullying the orange, yeah, Catherine, I'm bullying the orange one, the Epstein War. Is TikTok, I can't even say that because I'll get a strike for that. I can't even say Laura's school. I can't say that because I know you're being sarcastic, but the algorithm will read it the wrong way. But anyway, guys, please go over. I know it can be a stretch to leave TikTok, at least even for just my lives. But my lives are really good sometimes, really good. Sometimes they suck, but they're really good, and I have really great guests now coming on, and I'm getting networked within the community and I'm getting. It's worth it. Please come over to Substack at Zenocracy.news. Subscribe to my Zenocracy. That's the name of our community on TikTok. Subscribe to Zenocracy on TikTok. Absolutely love you forever. Subscription is free. Love you forever for that. If you're so inclined and it's something that is comfortable for you to do now, please choose a paid subscription because that's what allows me to earn a living, to be able to do what I'm doing. But whatever works for you is fantastic. You're gonna be a fantastic person just for coming on there. But again, if you're more comfortable sticking around on TikTok itself, I get it, and I am not going to give up. We are just going to try. We are just going to try to keep making TikTok work. But I'm also going live on Instagram and YouTube. I haven't really broken and Facebook. I haven't broken through as effectively in those communities yet, but I will over time. If you want to follow me there, if that's a preference, on Instagram, I'm Mitch Ivan, MITCHEIVEN. On YouTube, I am Zenocracy. I got to do something about my branding because I'm fucking this up. I have some resources that can help me with it. And on Facebook, also Mitch Ivan, Mitcheiven. So there's plenty of places to watch, but I think Substack can be the most effective place um, to join us. Anyway, I digress. So Nick Fuentes and other and I'm sure many other MAGA influencers are like not happy with the war, right? So Ipsos does a flash poll, right? And I mean other polling outlets, I'm sure did polling on it as well. But Ipsos does a flash poll, like within I don't know 24, 26, 28 hours of the Iran war, and it is quickly determined that just a quarter of the American public is supporting the Iran war. I would almost bet it's less than that, but it's certainly it's certainly no more than that. Subsequently, there's subsequent polling after Ipsos confirming those polling results. So now the sycophants, the Marco Rubios, the trying to think who else specifically, um, Pete Hegseths of the world, right? They come out and they go on PR damage control, right? They start coming up with new reasons for the war, right? Because reasons that the reasons that were originally created, the nuclear weapon thing, just isn't playing particularly well in Magaland or in America. Like it's just not really working. So we get this, we get this new reason that pops up. I don't know where it started. I can't profess to be, that in the know. I can't really tell you who started it or where it started, whether it started on social media and found its way to the White House, or whether it started in the White House or somewhere else or Fox News. Usually we can track this shit. There's trickle up attention economics, though that's the way the world works now with social media. Usually shit starts in social and makes its way up now, but I don't know if that's what happened. But this new narrative comes out, and it's that we've been at war with Iran for 47 years. And it's time to put it to a stop. It's time to put a stop to the 47-year battle that we have been engaged in that the Iranians started. They're taking this back to 1979, when the Shah of Iran was basically kicked out and the original Ayatollah took over, right? And that's when the war apparently started. And they're going to put a stop to it. And of course, this is perfect for Hegseth, right? Because Hegseth, being the tough guy who's in charge of the Department of War, right, who lives for this stuff, right? Right? Oh, Lacey, you didn't hear that? I shit you not, Lacey. That's a thing. So Hegseth, and the other thing that they did was they decide that they're going to make Hegseth the face of the war, right? They're gonna put this guy. They're gonna, and I don't mean to laugh, but it's just so nuts, right? They're gonna put this guy, Pete, right? Rat Boy Pete, right? They're gonna make him the face of the war. And he comes out and he starts doing press conferences with Raising Cain, the General Cain, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who was a little bit more subdued and professional. I mean, he may be nuts. I think he could be, but he's not Hegseth, right? Who is like Hegseth, who is like in your face. We're warriors, and we're not putting up with any of this DI, other crap anymore. We're just gonna take them down, right? It's much more. Hegseth is much more aggressive than that. Um, but what about the Armageddon justification, Gail? Absolutely. There was also that part and parcel to that. Yes, is that they're doing this for it was a holy war in essence, right? It was our holy war. But irrespective, right? Hegseth comes out and starts babbling. He starts babbling about the 47-year war that's been going on. Marco Rubio starts babbling on and talking about it. The Donald Trump can't remember it half the time, but every so often, we got a 47-year war. It's a great war. We're gonna put a stop to it. It's been 57 years, whatever he says, right? And this goes on, but the problem they have, right, is the polling isn't changing. right? The polling isn't shifting in any capacity at all. It's going in the opposite direction. The situation is, irrespective of what Hegseth is telling us about how great things are going and how much damage they're doing and how the enemy has been destroyed, we're still seeing reports about U.S. embassies being hit in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, U.S. or was it a U.S. consulate? Please fact check me on that. But U.S. assets being hit. And most unfortunately, is we're getting the reporting. We have the reporting that 6 U.S. service members have lost their lives in this war already. And, many of us question whether or not that's an accurate number, considering the amount of firepower thus far we can see through multiple news outlets has that the Iranians have deployed against U.S. assets, right? Um, and the Trump administration has a tendency to lie to us anyway, all the time for everything. So why wouldn't they lie about the casualty and, unfortunately, those who have lost their lives? So we don't know for sure. It seems like there's reporting that's kind of followed up on this now, so maybe they're accurate. And of course, the number of casualties and people who are losing their lives on the Iranian side are going up. And two, I don't think it should surprise anyone that Americans don't like to see that. Like, we don't like that. Whether it's our folks or other folks, we don't like to see that anywhere, here or there, right? But the administration still hasn't figured that out yet. And the other problem they have is while they're trying out this new narrative, and then you've got all the Republican talking heads on Fox News, and the ones that will do other cable news hits are coming out and talking about the 47 years of war. The problem they have is the villainy of Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is actively still out there, right? Talking about the 47-year war, but he knows he has no confidence in that. So he's still talking about the nuclear weapons, right? They had nuclear weapons. They were just going to have them a minute ago. I saw we've been at war for 47 years. And so while the messaging, right? Hey, Catherine, while the messaging is that, the sycophants in the Trump administration are trying desperately to figure out the messaging that's going to work, that's going to shift the poll numbers, and why they are desperately hoping that having drunken Pete Hegseth out there, right, telling everybody about who he has. And I shit you not, guys. I did a post on this. Go to my Instagram and you'll see the post I did with Hegseth speaking, or if you look it up yourself. Hegseth just telling us endlessly in terms that would get him banned in 32 seconds on TikTok, but for the fact that TikTok is now owned by Trump supporters Larry Ellison and his son, right? Hegseth cannot stop telling us about all the people that have been unalived and using words that are far more aggressive than unalived, right? That guy, right? I'm trying to use language that TikTok will like, so our 10-minute restriction will go away, right? That guy, that particular clown, right, is babbling about this, and Donald Trump can't stay on message, and they're losing ground, right? So Donald Trump, in his infinite wisdom, decides to throw another monkey wrench into the messaging chaos, right? He decides to post on Truth Social that Iran interfered in the 2024 presidential election, right? And now that is now integrated into the messaging clusterfuck, right? So now, and I'm going to say something about that in a moment. But now you've got the justifications, and this is in 48 hours, guys. 48 hours since the bombing started. The justifications for the war include weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons in months or soon, intercontinental ballistic missiles in months or soon that could hit the U.S., a 47-year war that the tough guys in the White House are going to put an end to once and for all, and Iran interfered in the 2024 elections. Now, Now, I think it was, and Gail, if I'm misquoting you, if you didn't mention this, please forgive me, but I have to mention where I think it was Gail mentioned something, and I think I fucked up in my response to it, and I will always fact check myself in real time. And Gail, if this wasn't you, sorry, just tell me. But I think Gail had mentioned that the 2024 Trump's comment about the 2024 messaging, the 2024 Iran interfering in the 2024 election, although it was another excuse, right? Another excuse to for going to war. I think Gail, you had mentioned that it was also an excuse to interfere with the 2026 midterm elections, and I had mentioned in response to that that I've heard that narrative. I've seen that narrative being played out on social and by some very 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 smart people, but I just had a hard time buying into it because I didn't think that that was that's necessary. I thought the timing would have been off for that. But I think I changed my mind on that by after being a little more educated and learning what's going on out there, because I noticed that just a week before the Village Idiot had talked about China being involved in election interference in 2024. And then if you think back to Tulsi Gabbard, I don't want to get us off on a rabbit hole in a different on a different story. I'm just going to do this very quickly because I want to do a fact check on myself. Tulsi Gabbard somehow being there for that FBI raid on a election office in Fulton County, Georgia, and she's the director of national intelligence. When you put those three things together, it makes it clear that they are trying to build a narrative to interfere with the 2026 elections through this idea of foreign interference in elections and to try to nationalize our elections. It won't happen at all. So, Gail, my apologies for being wrong. You were 100% spot on with your assessment, and I'm glad you were. And uh, I'm going to get back to the main story here, guys, in 2 seconds. But my of that, do not worry about it. We'll pay attention to it. We'll be aware of it. But it's not going to work in any capacity. That's another live for another day. Why it won't work, and I'll explain that more at another time. Even folks like Mark Elias at Democracy Docket, and he's the guy. His firm is suing actively suing 22, I think in 22 states now to protect our elections. He's the guy fighting for it to protect our elections. He's the guy that fought in 2020 to try to keep the Village Idiot from overturning the election there in the courts. This is not something he's terribly concerned about. And I'll explain that in another live. But it is it's Gail. There's other ways that they can interfere, like putting ICE agents at polling stations and other areas. But and you never know what they might try to pull. Anyway, I digress for a change. Is our 10-minute TikTok ban over yet? American people, America, if Mitch's, I want to know if the ban is like TikTok. Somebody from TikTok needs to tell me. Is the ban? It was 10 minutes for restriction, and I think it's been 10 minutes. Are we still restricted? TikTok, are we restricted? I want to know. I don't know. Anyway, anyway. Hello from TikTok. Hey, who's your mama? How are you? It's good to see you. Who's your mama? Hello. Um, maybe the band's not in since Who's Your Mama was able to get in. Maybe it's going away now. So anyway, back to the story. I'm all over the place today, guys, but it's one of those days. Back to the narrative at hand, and I am going to play this clip of Donald Trump in moments. I just needed to. It just only took me 50 minutes to work up to it. This is why I have to work on getting to the point. But I'm not there yet. So now we have these multiple messages, right? These multiple reasons for going to war. It was a nuclear bomb. That didn't. Iran's gonna have a nuclear bomb. That didn't. That wasn't working. Then it became the intercontinental the Iranians are going to have intercontinental ballistic missiles. That didn't work. Then the entire Republican echo chamber, the political class, and the social media class, and the cable news class settled on it's been a 47-year war, and we're going to put a stop to it. Then the Village Idiot Donald Trump screws that up in one press conference by talking about the 47-year-old war and adding to that adding to the 47-year war the nuclear bomb story again, right? And then he throws in the 2024 election interference by the Iranians, right? So that's the reasons for the war, right? So we have all of this totally mixed up, undisciplined, chaotic messaging right now that nobody in America buys. Even as I was talking about folks like Nick Fuentes, you certainly have Candace Owens. I don't even know. I'd be curious to see where Megyn Kelly stands on this. But even within, the MAGA community, they've not been sold on the stupidity of all of these different reasons for war. Anyway, we get to the finally going to get to that clip for today. So Donald Trump does a press conference. I'm sorry, does a press conference yesterday, right? And in the press conference, he's talking about why we went to war, and he starts throwing in a whole bunch of new reasons. And by the way, Marco Rubio accidentally added an additional reason, which is probably the actual reason. He was doing a press conference and he fucked up and he told everybody that we went to war because Bibi Netanyahu was going to war anyway, and we had to do it. Like the Israelis were going to war anyway, and since they were going to hit them, the Iranians were going to hit us, and we had to take we had to preemptively be defensive, which didn't make any fucking sense. And so, in essence, that Israel forced us into going to war. In essence, so that one was added in there as well. So now Trump comes in and he comes up with a whole bunch of old shit and new shit, right? And he adds into it that the Iranians knew that he built up the military in his first administration. That's why we went to war. And that we have B-2 bombers now. And that's why you just got to listen to the whole thing. That's why we went to war. And maybe if, in addition to that, they're going to have a nuclear bomb in 2 weeks. And the comedy with that is I'm sure you guys all know this, but anytime Trump is lying about anything and wants us to expect something to happen that we need to happen, or we're going to get information about something, it's always 2 weeks, right? They're going to release the Epstein files. They're going to release a few more of them. It's going to be 2 weeks. The economy, it's going to get a lot better. You're going to see a big difference in the price of eggs in 2 weeks. It's all going to happen in 2 weeks. You're going to get a lot of information. Things are going to be better. It's over and over and over. It's 2 fucking weeks. So you know that when he's in the most trouble, it's going to be 2 weeks. And now I'm going to play this clip for your entertainment.
Well, as I do, you see the tremendous progress that's being made. Their missiles are being wiped out rapidly. Their launchers are being wiped out. They're attacking their neighbors. They're attacking in some cases, allies, or not so long ago, allies. And, it's really a nation that was out of control, and they would have used it on us if we let them, if we waited any longer. A big factor was Soleimani, the killing of Soleimani in my first term. And maybe the biggest factor was the rebuilding of the military in my first term. And then the B-2s hit and I use the word obliterate because it was a complete obliteration of their nuclear potential. And that set them back very, very seriously. If we didn't hit within 2 weeks, they would have had a nuclear weapon. If we didn't do the B-2 attack a number of months ago, they would have a nuclear weapon. And when crazy people have nuclear weapons, bad things happen.
So there you have it, my friends. If we didn't hit within 2 weeks, they would have had a nuclear weapon. If we didn't do the B-2 attack, they would have had a nuclear weapon. So now the shift is that the attacks over the summer that we were told by him obliterated Iran's nuclear capability in essence forever because they were so successful. That got rid of the uranium, and the uranium, Donald. Um, that that getting rid of that got rid of all the uranium. Did it that we were told was completely obliterated. To use the same words back then. That wasn't the case. But now, if he didn't completely obliterate the Iranian nuclear stockpile this time, they would have had their nuclear weapons in 2 weeks. This war has been a epic clusterfuck from the start. I've been talking about it and reporting it on all my socials for days now, and I think everybody's been talking about it. It has been unplanned chaos. It does seem like, as I watched Pete Hegseth's press conference yesterday, it does seem like there was a significant amount of military planning on how to bomb and unalive a bunch of people, right? It does. Oh, you're right. Absolutely, Gail. Everything he does is like that. I mean, I'm sorry, Patty, and everything is like that. This is how he operates. It's all chaos. But it seemed like there was a plan to move those assets from a lot of our military assets from the Caribbean Sea over time over to the Gulf. There was a plan to do exactly what Bush did, which was a shock and awe campaign. What Bush and Cheney did. There was a plan to do a shock and awe campaign, and there was clearly what seems clear to me, for whatever that's worth, is there seemed to be a certainty within Trump administration and the rest of them that, or at least with Trump, that this was going to be Venezuela all over again. They were going to go in, they were going to blow everything up, they were going to unalive the leader, and that would be the end of it. They would be able to either install somebody else new, somebody who was, more moderate that they knew about in Iran, or maybe not. Or maybe it's I know the Shah, the former Shah's son, he's here in the US. Maybe they were thinking of him. But that would be it. It would be over in 3 days, maybe 4 days. And there was ample reporting suggesting that over the last several months, there actually were people that got through. I don't know how they could have gotten through the gatekeepers, in the White House, but there were actually people that got through and were able to explain to the imbecile that this is not going to be like this, that Iran is not Venezuela, that the regime is not the Venezuelan regime, that Iran has extraordinary capabilities to hit back, that that regime change isn't just going to happen. And there clearly was a total lack of understanding from the Trump administration to the Netanyahu administration. Benjamin Netanyahu has been wanting to do this for 30 some odd years, right? He has been wanting, he's got his own reasons. I would argue some of those reasons. Look, I'm no fan of Benjamin Netanyahu. He's a sick fucking master of genocide. He's also, he's a war criminal as far as I'm concerned, and I'm an American Jewish person, and I have a connection to Israel, but not to this leadership. And he is he's a horrific leader. He's on trial for corruption, and he's clearly, we don't. You're innocent until you're assumed guilty, even in the Israeli system of justice. but his behaviors, all of them are suggestive of the fact that he's guilty, and that if he loses power in Israel and he loses his trial, if it ever starts up again, that he will be held to account and found guilty. So I'm no fan of his, but you could understand why, for as horrific as Israel's behavior has been toward Gaza, toward the Palestinians in Gaza forever, and especially as inhumane and criminal as it's been over the last 2 years, or 2.5 years, over the long term, you could understand why Israel would want to eliminate the Iranian threat. I mean, look, the Iranians, not all Iranians, but the Iranian regime has called for the destruction of Israel over and over again. So, and you could understand why an Israeli who understands that you could have that if Iran were to develop a nuclear bomb, right, that if they were in enough trouble, right, they might just drop it on Israel. Like it could be a thing. It would be like Mexico having a nuclear bomb and being, in essence, a theocracy, Mexico being run, or Canada being run as an extremist theocracy, even though there were people in the country who didn't believe that, right? So again, I don't justify Israel's actions in any capacity, but for anything. But just in terms of this particular situation, because I'm going to get to a point about how I think Donald Trump is a puppet. That's why I'm going here, guys. I feel that the idiot is a puppet because I think Netanyahu very skillfully and masterfully manipulated, managed, controlled, and got the idiot Donald Trump to do exactly what he wanted. I think he saw the opportunity. I think he probably played his cards. What's that saying? Play your cards tight to your vest. I don't know what the saying is, but I think he manipulated this over several months, if not longer. He knows how to flatter Donald Trump in order to get Donald Trump to do what he wants. And he knows how to. He's been, he's been friends with the village idiot for a long time now. And although he is probably as corrupt as Trump is, he is much, 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 much smarter. So it's my belief, for whatever that's worth, that Netanyahu carefully orchestrated this over a period of months. He waited till the right moment. He kept the village idiot Donald Trump in the dark for as long as possible. He allowed Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, who thought I think he outwitted those two as well. He allowed them to go in there. I said that, and I meant what I said, guys. He allowed them. And when I say that he allowed them, I think inadvertently he figured out how to manage Trump and orchestrated Trump well enough for Trump to send. It's not like Trump sent two people to negotiate with Iran who know what the hell they're doing, right? It's not like Trump sent his son-in-law and his corrupt real estate lawyer, right? It's not like Trump sent seasoned diplomats who would actually be able to negotiate and extract assets within the negotiation from the Iranians and come to a solution, right? It's not like any of that was a thing. You know what I mean? Like it was these two buffoons. So considering that reality, I believe that Netanyahu somehow completely managed the situation, that Mossad, that his intelligence community also helped manage the situation so that they could effectively manipulate Trump into doing exactly what they want. And then just at the moment, and you may disagree with me, and I respect that 100,000% if you don't see it this way. This is totally speculative. I just think it. But, I think that he anticipated where Kushner and Witkoff were going to go, and then he chose the appropriate moments during those negotiations to call up Trump, release just enough information, and for Trump to give the go ahead to do the bombing. And I think that's what we are, where we are right now. And hey, look, if I'm proven wrong, look, I'll tell you guys. I mean, if I fuck this up, I'm happy to let you know. Just like I told Alec, I had to give Gail her kudos here because she threw something out a couple days ago, and I thought I didn't agree with it, and I think she's 100,000% right now. So so on that note, let me take you to this story from MS Now. Just want to check the time. I got to wrap the live in a little bit. I'm sorry, guys. I just should have done that. Sorry about that. Now you can actually see it. Hang on. Sorry about that. So let me just move this over a little bit so you guys can see the article. So this is just a story from MS Now. Whatever you think about MS Now, that's not the point. Point is the story. So Iran live updates drone strikes airport in Azerbaijan, but this is the second part is what I want to get at for this point in the discussion. The war is costing the U.S. $1 billion a day. Okay. I think that's, there's no reason not to believe that, right? I mean, maybe it's wrong, maybe the reporting is incorrect, but just kind of having a ballpark idea of how much things cost, I think we can safely assume that that's probably a fairly accurate number. So if we take the narrative that I just invented, the narrative that I just made up, right? That my speculation that this war is not in the interest of the United States in any capacity. Iran is not 2 weeks, like the idiot just told us. 2 weeks away. Iran is not 2 weeks away from having a nuclear weapon. We know that's a lie because Iran was because the administration had already lied to us in the summer that they had completely obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities, and Iran, was years away at best. And now suddenly they're 2 weeks away. So we know it's a lie. They're not 2 weeks away. They're not a month away, at least based on our intelligence. Maybe Israeli intelligence is different. I'm sure they're not sharing it with us because they know Donald Trump is a bumbling imbecile who will share that intelligence with others, right? So, so based on this speculation that I have, right? So we know there's no weapons of mass destruction that are ready to go. I think we can safely say, using our common sense, that Iran is nowhere near having a intercontinental ballistic missile that can reach the United States. I think there has been plenty of reporting suggestive of the fact that that's just bullshit, right? Does Israel have actual actionable intelligence that they might have fudged a little bit that they shared with the US? That maybe Iran has an intercontinental ballistic missile that could reach Pakistan or that could reach, go a little bit further than their neighbors, right? And then Israel's like, Donald, I could hear Netanyahu, Donald, my Netanyahu impression isn't great, but I'm doing it for dramatic effect. Donald, you could, they will have this. Yeah, that doesn't sound at all like Netanyahu. I got to work on it, but that's okay. Donald, they will have this bomb. It will come. You'll get it in 4 hours, and you'd better not. You gotta go. You gotta bomb them. I gotta work on it. I'm workshopping the Netanyahu impression with all of you guys. So just bear with me. If there are any MAGA folks or pro-democracy folks over on TikTok who want to make fun of my Netanyahu impression or any of my impressions, I welcome that. I always prefer that to being called bad things about being a liberal. So go for it. So the intercontinental ballistic missile stuff that's going to hit the U.S. is bullshit. Iran certainly, the other excuse that Iran certainly could have interfered with the 2024 presidential election, that China could have, is perfectly possible. The Russians interfered with the 2016 election. We know that to Donald Trump's benefit. We know that, sorry guys, for a fact that that was a thing. They've been actively interfering with our other elections. We know the Iranians have they have a significant and very competent hacking squad. So this could be intelligence that found its way into the idiot's purview, and then he just decided to apply it. It has nothing to do with bombing Iran, and I'm sure if they did interfere with the election, it was to get. I'm sure they didn't want Kamala elected, so I'm sure it was in his benefit, right? Um, so that's bullshit, right? In terms of as a justification, we haven't had a fucking 47-year war with Iran. We know that's a bunch of bullshit. Any of us, I'm 57. I've been around for the 47 years. We've had skirmishes, sort of, kind of, with Iran. Iran has, threatened the U.S. many, many, many times. We haven't been at war with them for 47 years. That's just not, it never was a thing. Americans aren't fucking buying it. We don't believe it. It's nonsense. I don't know why they keep going back to it, but they do. Based on that, based on the fact that there is absolutely no justification whatsoever for this war at this point in time from the US's perspective, and that Netanyahu has been waiting to do this for 30 years, and that there are some justifications from the Israeli perspective for having this war. And based on my speculation, that Netanyahu completely manipulated Donald Trump into starting this war, that he played Donald Trump like a fiddle to start this war. Then we get to this article, just half of this headline, where the war is costing $1 billion a day. Thus far, we have lost 6 souls. 6 members of our military that we know about are gone. Their families are destroyed, right? That's 6 that we know about, and I still have a sense, we'll find out if this is true or not, but I still have a sense that the administration isn't being honest with us about the amount of people who have passed. I still think we're being lied to, but I don't know. I could be wrong. But we've certainly confirmed 6 people. There are dozens who are severely injured. Right, the CENTCOM leadership in Central Command and the White House has only given us sort of these vague numbers of people that have been seriously injured. 6, 8, 10. We have no idea. We have no idea what the extent of the injuries are. We have no idea where they're being treated, which is fine. I understand that. But we should know how many of our service members have been severely injured and what the extent of the injuries are and if they're life-threatening. And it could be 6, 10, 60, 600. We don't know. We're not being told. Reporters are not able to get access to that information. And that's never been the case in my lifetime as I've been watching U.S. wars happen, right? So we've lost 6 people. We have, for sure, possibly more. We certainly have dozens, if not more, who have been seriously injured. And then in terms of injuries that are not serious, that are not life-threatening, no fucking idea whatsoever. No clue whatsoever. So that's the cost so far. $1 billion a day. What are we, 4 days in? So the war has cost us, am I right? Somebody correct me. 4 days in. Sorry, there we go. 4 days in, or 5, or 4 or 5 days. Somebody, I don't know. Somebody correct me on this. But we're either $4 or $5 billion in on this war already, and we've lost minimum of 6 people, possibly more. We have minimum of a few dozen injured, severely, seriously injured, and an untold number of how many less serious injuries at this point. And that's what we're paying every day for what I am guessing is Benjamin Netanyahu manipulating Donald Trump. It is 2 people, I think. And again, I hope I'm proven wrong because it's too fucking ridiculous if I'm right. But if we are spending this much money and we've already lost lives, and there are people who, God forbid, may never walk again, may never, may be, permanently disabled in all sorts of ways, or God willing will recover, but may have months and months and months and months, if not years, of very, very difficult recovery, right? A traumatic head injury, is going to be listed as a serious injury, but it's not going to be listed as a death because it's not. But we all know that if somebody gets a traumatic head injury in war, they're depending on the extent of the injury and the amount and if or not the brain is damaged, they are looking at all sorts of different types of permanent disability, right? And at best, for whatever recovery that God willing they can achieve, it is months, if not years down the line to achieve that recovery. That's the price. And that's not what the media is covering. And that pisses me off, right? But that's the price that the America is paying for this nonsense now. And you know what? And I got to wrap the live in just a few minutes because we have our daily briefing with Chorus in a couple minutes. But you know what, guys? I could even be a little less critical, not much, but I could be a little bit less critical if we would have had a say in it, right? If this asshole wouldn't have pulled the George Bush and the people around him, right? This really, I know my affect is changing, but I really feel angry about this, and I just am going to express that. Like you have to go to Congress when you're going to declare war. That's the way it works. I know Bush fucking cheated on that, right? I know that look, you can make an argument whether or not Obama's efforts to get bin Laden was war or was just an action that a president can take. But this situation in Iran, what Bush and Cheney did in Iraq, those are wars, right? The war in Afghanistan, that was a war, right? No question about it, right? Congress has to approve a war. And if members of the House of Representatives and members of the Senate approve a war, that means they have to answer to their constituents about the war, right? So indirectly, we have a say in the war, right? So if our country, my country, is spending $1 billion a day right now, and I am upset that 6 people at least have died. I don't want that for this. I am upset that at least dozens of people right now, right, dozens of people right now are facing, I just have to do this with TikTok, give me a second, guys, are facing months, if not years, of incredibly difficult recovery if, God willing, they survive. I don't want that for this, right? I don't want that there are people now even suffering from concussions, that they're going to be okay and they'll be able to go back to active duty. I don't want that as an American citizen for this. But I didn't get a fucking say. I didn't get a say because this clown, right, decided to take his war powers that do not exist so far to the extreme and break the law, right, that I didn't get to say. And that's bullshit. And I don't like it. Man, I don't know what else to, I don't know how else to phrase it, but not that I don't expect it from them, because I do. But when I think of the stupidity of all things Trumpian, and I think of what I believe is the narrative for this war, which is Netanyahu manipulating Donald Trump, that's just not a price that I'm willing to, you know what I mean? Like, if Congress would have been involved, there would have been debate, there would have been negotiation, there would have been discussion, and all of America would have known whether or not Donald Trump, whether or not this is a war that benefits the United States, that is necessary in any capacity, would be discussed. And the idea that Benjamin Netanyahu just manipulated Donald Trump into doing this would have been discussed. And now it's not, and it's unacceptable. I love you guys. I've got to wrap the live now. Thank you so much for being here. Just a few quick things. If you missed our interviews this week, we had some good ones. We had Jacob Ward, and you can see that. That's probably it's a super strong interview. Jacob is just he's a powerhouse. He's incredibly knowledgeable. He's a seasoned tech reporter, tech politics reporter, and that's up on Substack if you guys want to check it out. If you haven't had a chance, we go into how AI is being used in this war, and in some instances, how utterly ridiculous it is, almost to the point where it's laughable. We go into the whole AI debacle with Anthropic and the Trump administration, one of the big AI firms. And then we go into some really scary stuff where Jacob's been doing a lot of reporting about ISIS, all the surveillance tools that ICE has access to. It's shit that we need to know about. So if you haven't had a chance to join that, if you didn't join that live, go to Xenocracy.news. It's listed in the in the ticker on there, and it's a really, really, really important conversation. My interview schedule for next week is a little bit isn't set yet. Just to give you an idea of who I'm hoping to get next week is I'm hoping to get a state treasurer. There are a few state treasurers from a couple of states right now that are eager to speak to creators, and that's sort of getting set up for me right now to talk about how the tariffs are affecting their states. I think hopefully we'll also talk about the war a little bit and how that may be affecting their states. So that's a good potentiality. I'm hoping to get Congresswoman Scanlon back on again too to discuss maybe Kristi Noem and I'm just reaching out to her team though, so I haven't heard back yet, but hopefully we'll be able to get her back because she spoke to Noem and as well as others on the Hill this week. And there's a few other interviews I'm getting, and hopefully within our group at Chorus, I've got some other folks who have some political analysis that I think you guys are going to like. So hopefully we'll get to some of that. So thank you guys. 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 live at a time. That's how we get through this. That's how we chunk through this. When you got to take a break, take a break. Walk away. We'll be here, and then come back in. And get back in the fight. Where I know it's crazy and it feels like we haven't gone very far. We're over a year into this administration. How the fuck are we going to survive 3 years the same way we made it this far? I love you guys. Thank you from everybody on every platform. I'll see you tomorrow, 11:15 a.m. Eastern. Check me out on my. I'll be posting throughout the day on the socials. Check me out there as well, and we'll also be putting posts up here. Be well, everybody. Take care. I just have to wrap the live separately. So TikTok, I'm gonna wrap you guys first, and then everybody else. Okay, so TikTok has left the building, and now we'll wrap the other live. Thank you guys. Be well.